on, Graham. We need to get this helicopter to the AO.
What?
I said we need to get this helicopter to the AO. Graham, where are you going? Right, Graham. I've got this helicopter. Now land it very carefully. That's it. My back is killing me. Let me just reach down and...
Brenda! Oh. Excuse me, young man. Do you know how to fly a helicopter?
What the fuck are you talking about? I'm gonna get you guys banned for destroying vehicles at base.
Are you tired of Brenda and Graham's flying you around in KOTH? Are you tired of these kinds of wannabe pilots in KOTH? Are you tired of having your fate decided for you as you respawn over and over, just trying to get into the AO? Well, take back control and master disguise. You're in luck because this video's got you covered. Today, we're covering the A to Zs. Well, technically, the H to Ps, since we're just doing the Hummingbird and Pawnee. But still, it's a masterclass on how to land troops quickly, how to not be that pilot who enrages the entire team he's playing on, and how to refine your piloting awareness so that you last longer in disguise while in a Pawnee and rack up those juicy kills. Let's get right in to our very first section, Landings 101 in King of the Hill. It's been over a year since my Helicopter 101 series aired, so in case you haven't seen my Keybindings in that video, I've got them up on screen now. They are shamelessly based off the Battlefield 3 and 4 helicopter bindings, and they allow me to get some really precise but also smooth flying, which comes across like I'm using a joystick. Now you've got your controls semi-figured out, we can talk about the HAL principle. Piloting in KOTH, or ArmA in general for that matter, relies on a bedrock of principles that can be broken down into the following. Know your helicopter, know your airspace, know your limits. Number 1. Know your helicopter. When I say this, I mean knowing its dimensions from the back of your hand, its rotor span, how far back the tail boom goes, its damage model, everything inside and out about your specific helo. The reason I can push the airframe so much when I fly is simply because I am 100% tuned in to how the Hummingbird will perform with every fine-grained mouse movement and button press I make. And before you say, "But Tommy, I suck at landing, even in the Hummingbird," if this guy can land like this in the Blackfish VTOL, you can land in the Hummingbird. It's the smallest helicopter in the game. It just takes a bit of fine-tuning and, of course, religious practice. If you love it enough, you'll put in the hours to become a trusted pilot in your KOTH server. I'd recommend getting into the habit of flying first person when you're practicing, as it will build up that muscle memory of what you can and can't do, even when you can't see certain parts of the airframe. Being in third person of course gives you a huge advantage for seeing the tail boom and rotor span, but I believe this won't help you out in the long run. Mind-bogglingly amazing pilots like Misconduct are exceptions to this rule, but our main goal here is to improve your situational awareness without having your hand held with this external camera perspective. When Chinook pilots are being trained for sorties in Afghanistan, they will complete flying exercises without any visual references whatsoever. Usually it's hovering at around 30 foot on a dusty desert floor with sand swirling around outside of the cockpit. They'll have no idea of what direction anything is. The instructor then puts a slight tilt on the angle of the helicopter and the pilot has to correct it and land safely. Take your first person flying as a similar task. You're trying to wire your brain into a way so that it's like navigating a new body around with new dimensions and distance around you. If you're really struggling to gauge things properly in first person, double tap the number pad minus key to get a wider field of view, or if you're feeling extravagant, buy a track IR so you can look around your virtual cockpit with ease. Number 2, know your airspace. And even then, don't just know where you're flying, own it. Let's imagine the AO is in the classic city of Kavala, as it usually is. However, it could also be any of these others dotted across the map too. Plus, factoring in other maps, you've got to know your locations. But people usually stick to Altis anyway. Even with that said, the lands of Altis alone are tricky to master fully. They are complex, huge, and lots of things will pop up as you fly around. Like these goddamn trees. I don't know what it is with these particular LOD models, but you have to watch out for them. You can be flying absolutely swimmingly, and then one of these little pops out of nowhere, like Bruce Lee doing a karate chop, and kabooey goes your helicopter, and you leave the server out of shame. That's totally me. You've been warned. Spot these baddies early and avoid them indefinitely. So, let's follow 2 landing clips I've got that go from approach to bleed flare to landing. If you don't know what a bleed flare is, it's basically where you level out your pitch so your speed and altitude slow down equally. It's like the space between landing and flying. The bit we're interested in here though is the approach, the place I subconsciously pick out as my route to landing safely and quickly in the AO. In terms of picking a landing site, this clip from one of my Twitch streams when I answered someone's question about how to find good LZs in KOTH is quite helpful, and I'll spare you the bad art skills and I'll put some nice pretty pictures over the top. This is the AO. We have, so this is your spawn, and then this is the enemy spawn here. So they're going to be coming in here and here. But the thing is, they're not going to be here for very long. They're mainly going to be over here because they're going to be trying to kill you. They're going to be trying to kill wherever you land in this radius. So you'll find if you land in this kind of area, so like where you would expect them to land, you will actually find there'll be a lot less people camping here because everyone wants to tend to go to the center of the action. So if you actually just fly over here to like the edge of the AO, these spots end up being really good. I want you to think of the AO as a gambling slot machine. You could win big and land in an awesome safe spot. Brilliant. You could be shot down before you even reach the AO, or somewhat worse still, you could be shot after you think you're safe and sound. Even with thousands of hours of flying in this game and ArmA 2, I've learnt to realise that surprises will be lying everywhere when you're the pilot. You could be flying in a completely abandoned part of the map, feeling safe and secure, and suddenly you've rustled a sniper nest and he's shot you out of your helicopter with his 50 cal. This is a disclaimer to all KOTH pilots. No matter how good or skillful you are at landing, there will always be surprises, things you weren't expecting. What you can do, however, is be the best prepared as you can be. Here are some top tips for approaching the AO for a landing. Number 1, approach with different routes than the other transport choppers take. Be innovative and break the mold. People learn patterns. They learn where the enemy helicopters are typically landing or paradropping and set up shop to shoot us down. Like a good sniper, you should always be changing up your positioning. Number 2, unless very experienced and you absolutely need your super duper Russian dubstep music to hype you up, listen to the game sounds very carefully. Identify the sounds of missiles being launched, the dread rattling cannons of the Tigris anti-air, as well as tracers, trying to pin together their direction. Building up a mental picture of where things are is invaluable. If you know that there's a Tigris parked up on this hill, mark it on the map for your fellow transport pilots and mask around him. Intel is your friend. Number 3, fly fast and fly low, within reason obviously. We don't need more of these tragedies happening. Strangely, this is something I still see neglected by pilots in KOTH to this day. Maybe people are complacent, but you might as well just hit respawn and cut your losses if you're gonna fly like this. The amount of pilots I've seen who toggled auto hover on and just slowly descend to their deaths is amazing. You shouldn't be hovering, still stopped, or above the height of a tower and below the speed of 60 kilometers an hour unless landing. Keep things moving at all times and bob and weave unpredictably. Don't be cannon fodder. for the enemy team. Number 4. After flying a few transport runs, really try your best to figure out the lay of the land. What I mean by this is learning the contours of the terrain. Where does a big grouping of trees appear? A huge valley of hills? A cluster of buildings? This might sound incredibly boring, but it's stuff you can try to be mindful of as you fly. It will save you in some situations, trust me. If a Tigris starts opening fire on me, I know where my escape route is. I know there's a valley there. I know there's cover as I fly away. I know I'm safer because I remembered how the land works. Good pilots fly, great pilots adapt. None of these tips are 100% foolproof, of course. There will always be someone camping, waiting, or just in the right place at the right time, but they are precautions and advisory notes on how you can at least die after landing, not before it, and take out all your passengers in the process. Number 3. Know your limits. God, I sound like I'm speaking to an alcoholic support group. That'll be the majority of people who watch my content then. So, unfortunately, it's no secret that some King of the Hill players are a bit toxic.
We're just gonna keep jumping out of the blackfish. We're gonna keep jumping out of the blackfish.
Actually, I'm gonna get in here. Sorry.
That's boring.
Once we take back over the
looks pretty
AO. Once we take back over the AO, then we fucking start landing again. It's easy. We need to get a shit ton of our guys into the AO though. We just keep crashing helis.
Landed on top of it.
And here we go.
We're upside down.
Sorry about that.
Right,
Someone landed on top
get
of
out
it.
our
I'm sorry.
Now we're definitely destroyed.
Hey, Mr. Blackfish.
Everyone to Lee's
Mr. Blackfish,
helicopter.
Just drop me over AO so I can get fucking start killing these fucks so we can win. If everybody's gonna fuck around.
I just want this game.
Why you guys all such hardos? Why can't we just have a good time, you know?
We were when we were about to 100 wipe these fools.
That's why you don't fly 10 feet off the ground.
Well, I mean,
you're a fucking idiot. Don't land there. They're all camping.
You can buy your own heli.
Somewhere in the back.
Or you could just be better at it.
No, I prefer if you bought your own heli.
Nah, good.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, you want more salutes and praise from your passengers, but there comes a fine line. It's up to you how you handle this, and it's not really up to me to say, as everyone is at different levels in their flying, but you need to be really honest with yourself in assessing whether you are fit to fly in public servers. If you're confident you are, be ready to accept criticism from all channels, voice and text. Of course you can mute both, like so, but the important issue here is trust. If you abuse your piloting limits and fly by the seat of your pants, meaning without experience or expertise, you could crash, and then you could lose the trust of your friendly teammates on the server. Your goal is to become a recognized asset to your team, so people come back and trust your abilities. Otherwise, you'll be doomed to flying with very few passengers. In terms of damage model, know what things you can and can't do. If your tail is broken, and you've never done a tailless landing before, let your troops paradrop. It's about making judgment calls and doing things that let other players know that you're all on the same wavelength. As a final note, your limits are not a be-all to end-all. Pushing limits in the editor are a safe means of improving and learning to take risks that might help you out in multiplayer games. So don't feel disgruntled if things don't line up and a few people yelled at you in side chat. We all fail, even the best pilots of ArmA, like Misconduct, 104th Maverick, even Dyslexy. Looking pretty safe, honestly. The take-home point is we all crash and burn, but that doesn't mean we have to stop flying. It just means we need to reassess our limits and try again. Phew! So, This has turned out being quite a long video, so bravo old chap if you made it this far. Now you've got the HAL principle somewhat under wraps. The next bit is, Tommy, how do I practice all of this in the editor? I'll link the helicopter auto-rotation missions I referenced in my previous flight tutorials as they are invaluable. Number 1, practice still stops after speed in the open, then progress to built up cities. Here, you're using your pedals to bleed off speed alongside a pitch up key or aggressive mouse turn. Look how Chinook pilots turn on a dime and bleed off all their speed with one cyclic movement to land quickly. Your goal is to learn how to go from high speed to landing speed within a matter of seconds. Time costs lives in KOTH when people are trying to shoot you out of the sky. Number 2, practice emergency landings with the engine and tail rotor damage options in the scroll wheel selection. Auto rotation relies on holding the downward thrust key, so S in my case, and holding it till I land, and tailless landings rely on rocking out, which is where you spin out by gaining altitude and flipping the helicopter into a high speed forward motion. Number 3, the big one. Practice J-hook impromptu landings. A lot of KOTH landings are impromptu, meaning they're calculated there and then on the spot without much pre-planning. To learn how to do this, pick an AO city and fly low level, fast around it. Keep up to 200 kilometers an hour-ish and at the height of a tower or lower. Then bleed off all of your speed with a pitch up key. Mine is X for example. I hold down X until I spiral downwards and then I guide the helicopter down with my mouse and pedals. You won't master this instantly, it will take persistence, but with enough time you'll get really quick at adapting to terrain obstacles, fitting your chopper in between tight spaces and getting it down quickly. These kinds of pilots are the ones that are risky to fly with since they are that much closer to exploding if they so much as touch a single building or tree, but in general they are also much safer from being shot down before landing. Good luck practicing in the Hummingbird, happy flying, and may your landings be beautiful. I wish you guys all the best with your piloting, and let me know if you have any specific questions for me down in the comments. Take care guys, and I'll see you next time for the King of the Hill Pawnee tutorial. Tommy out.